Welcome to Blog Talk Radio, and welcome to the Crime Wire Show. And I apologize for not having music once again. We are trying to correct this little glitch. Crime Wire is an elite team of veteran investigation experts, along with noted crime consultants and attorneys, often featured on the popular news programs for families of violent crime to find answers and seek justice. The Crime Wire team, Denny Griffin, retired investigator and author, Susan Murphy Milano, violence expert and author, are there, on top of the crime, at the top of their game. Crime Wire is a place for information, news, safety, and most importantly, justice. Our interactive website is www.crimewiresite.com. You can call in any time during the show. The number is 1-646-478-0982. And remember, you can participate in tonight's show simply by going to the live interactive chat room right here on Blog Talk Radio. If you are a friend or a family member and you'd like to send the Crime Wire team information on an unsolved or suspicious death case, or you'd like to be considered for a segment for a future show, please email us at thecrimewire@gmail.com.
Allison Jackson Foy went missing from Wilmington, North Carolina on June 30th, 2006, and her remains were recovered in April of 2008, along with another set of remains belonging to Angela Nobles Rothen, who went missing a year after Allison. This begins a long road toward justice for Allison, seeking answers and bringing the perpetrators to an arrest. Allison's sister, Lisa Valentino, works closely with the Q Center for Missing Persons, who conducted many searches and awareness campaigns in the years that Allison was missing. But the road didn't end there. Still working together to find a final resolution to the case and bring justice for Allison and the two young children she left behind, Lisa continues to work with opportunities to benefit Q Center, as well as attends their national conference each year, bringing her experience and support to other families. Lisa
I think before we begin,
again,
Denny, with this, I think it's really important because we have Monica Cates on, and it's
okay.
Amazing to see that in a case like this, that the family does continue to work. The family does continue to help because the awareness campaigns, Monica, how important are they to missing persons' families throughout, even though there's some resolve at some point, which is what you hope for, but it continues?
Well, it's vital, Susan. We have to, we appreciate when the families come back and continue to help us spread the message and also be a support system for families that are newcomers coming in. And I think it's very important when families have been helped that they should come back and try to, help not only the families behind the scenes, with the counseling and because they've been there, they've already done that. It's instrumental and helps these families so much. People, they've walked that walk already, and they're also that beacon of hope that can, get these families to the next day sometimes. So it's very important when the families come back and help. It's very important to have spokespersons for the organization because, one, they've learned so much about the organization. They already know what families are going through, so they almost become one of your best advocates that could be out there, helping to reach back out to the community and even working with press at any level.
Lisa Valentino, real quick before we get started on your sister's case, can you talk to those that are listening right now so that we don't get away from this, the importance of having an agency like this behind you as you were looking for your sister?
Oh, my goodness. It's so important. I mean, I can't, to be completely and totally honest, I can't imagine that we would have ever recovered my sister without the help of Q Center and Monica because we wouldn't have known what to do. I mean, they were there with us every step of the way, teaching us what to do, telling us how to do it. And I think, that my family and I think we would have left Wilmington 10 days later just thinking that the police were going to take care of it all and do their job. And, we would just check in every once in a while and, that when they found her, they'd let us know. We just really were not aware of all that goes into it. And that's where Monica and Q were so important and beneficial.
Denny
Griffin, I really don't think we would have done it without him.
Denny Griffin, as an investigator, former investigator, we're looking at this case right now. There are two bodies that were discovered in one location. As a former investigator, what does that say to you when you see something like this or you come upon something like this? What do you think of right away?
Serial killers.
And but it's not common.
Location, huh?
It's not common, though. I mean, it's something that, they locate her and they locate another individual's remains at the same time.
Yes.
And then in something like that, do investigators usually comb the area around where they find the remains?
So, I would certainly think so. That if you find these two apparently unrelated disappearances, two women with whose appearances seem to be not tied together directly, then I would want to know what else is in that same area where the remains showed up.
Lisa Valentino, talk about your sister. When she goes missing, when do you find out and who reports her?
We found out, actually, my father got a phone call from Wilmington PD a few days after her disappearance. They left a message for him on his answering machine. So at the time of the message, my brother and sister and I and our families were on a family vacation in New Hampshire. So my father gets the phone call. He calls us. We're on our way home from this vacation, and we immediately make plans for all four of us to fly down to Wilmington and, find out what exactly is going on. Her husband at the time was the one who reported her missing, and I believe it was after 24 hours that he reported her missing. But he never once picked up the phone to call myself or my father or anyone in our family. And my sister had just been visiting at my house the month before she went missing.
Did she have children?
She did. She had two children. At the time of her disappearance, her daughter, Courtney, was 12 and Jordan was 4.
So the 4-year-old, does the 4-year-old have a lot of memory of mom or?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not sure really how much memory she has of her because I really am not allowed to have a relationship with her, but my father does see her and talk to her.
Wait a minute. You're not allowed to have a relationship with your own niece. Your sister's children.
I've been cut off from all contact with my niece. That's correct.
Because you were trying to find her, because you had started an investigation, because you had contacted a missing persons agency, what? Why?
Basically, right, because the father felt that I was pointing the police in his direction, which of course is ridiculous. I don't tell the police how to run an investigation. Any interviews and any investigating of him that they did on his own. But because I was so, I don't know what the right word is, but forceful and prevalent in the news and in getting the word out and in being in Wilmington, I guess that made him uncomfortable. And his claim is that he was trying to make a life for his younger daughter without the pressure of all the other things going on. So to this date, I haven't really been able to speak with her. But again, my father does have a relationship with her. So.
Denny, weigh in.
Yeah, I was just curious now. This Lisa, you being refused contact with your niece, was that just his wishes? This has nothing to do with any kind of a court order or court procedure.
No, it's his wish. It's his wish. So anytime I try to make contact with her or speak to her, he cuts it off immediately.
Okay. Now, as an aunt, I assume you don't have any legal standing as far as visitation, right?
I do not. There's no legal standing as an aunt.
Okay. And, I just wanted to, something I was thinking of a few minutes ago, Susan, I wanted to bring up with Monica. When you see Q Center for the missing, that's generally, you think it's a missing person related case, and once in the worst case scenarios such as this one, when the remains of the missing person are found, you might jump to the conclusion that that's the end of Q's involvement. But that's not true. In this case, you're continuing to work, actually, and Lisa's also helping you on a support basis. But you remain in the picture, right? Q doesn't just drop the ball and move on. You still try to help.
Well, we're always there until the end of your resolution, and that's and a lot of times that resolution will end when the person is found. But there are many cases that are unsolved homicides that need long-term care and still need help and still need help with advocacy and just in general, just trying to understand the system and whatnot. So there are quite a few cases that we have that the victims have been found and that we still remain on the scene, and because we establish relationships with all of these families as well, so we become an extended part of their family. I know with Lisa, she's my children and my husband, people have in my life have met her because she camped down here while her sister was missing, as well as other family members that she has, and we went to the funeral in New York and things of that sort. So we do many things behind the scenes with the families, and a lot of times relationships develop, and we want to see that justice for them. But when Lisa enters the courtroom, and she will one day with her case, then there'll be a court advocate for her, and then we'll be there as just general support, and that advocate will take over and explain the court process and be the person that she's going to end up having to rely on to help her through that next journey, her final journey. But a lot of times we pretty much are done once the person's found, but there are many families that come back to help us that because they felt like we helped them in such a large way and become a part of our organization and in many different levels. So that's where we're at. But yes, normally when the person is found, that's pretty much the end, because we have more missing people we have to find. So I remember the conversation with Lisa when Allison was found, and I said, I won't be returning your calls all the time like I always did before, and because we'll have other missing people. And, of course, she's just very insistent on that I do return her calls now. So.
On both of these cases, you've got Angela Rothen, who was she a missing person? Because she is found on June 10th of 2007. Is she missing by her family?
Yes, she was another case, and we started incorporating her case, with Allison's from right at the even before they were both found, we were working to try to get the word out about her, and it was a total different situation.
But the Allison Jackson Foy murder, it's July 30th, 2006 in Wilmington. And then, almost a year to the date, it's discovered that Angela Nobles Rothen is there. Is she buried with her?
They weren't buried. They were just pretty much placed, in the ditch. It's like if you can imagine, like a ditch that separates property kind of thing, and then you've got thicket trees and whatnot, and it was behind a restaurant off of a busy road.
So is it somebody's understanding that perhaps both of them died somewhere else and were brought there, or that they died there?
I think they both lost their life there, and I think there's a seclusion about the area. It's not far at all from the place Allison was last seen. There has been another female victim that's been found as well after Allison, 3.5 miles away from, pretty much right around the corner as the crow flies, less than a mile, but as the roadway, it's 3.5 miles.
Do all three fit a profile, fit a pattern of themselves that the person who did this would fit?
I think there's more. I think there was more before Allison and Angela. I don't know if Priscilla Rogers is involved or not in that, but I feel like she could be, just because of the area and the similarities, and that there's similarities with her being connected to Angela or whatnot.
They all have a lifestyle that was similar.
Yes, and I think what happened, we have a lot of missing girls that were way before Allison and Angela, and I think what happened here, and I know, and I've said this to Lisa many, many times, I think, in the law enforcement or even in the community's eyes, that Allison mattered, and Allison brought the attention to what's been going on because people were looking for her. Allison was not a prostitute or, didn't have a drug problem like, And not that that should matter or whatever. I'm just saying that that's the perception of some of the other.
I think it does. I think it does matter, because if we look at the Long Island serial killers in New York, and if we see all those individuals, it took one mother, Meg Waterman's mom, who did not give up, got Robin Sachs out of L.A. to pay attention and say, let's do this, and that started a firestorm of digging up remains of people that had been back there since 1996. And to me, this case strikes me the same way because of what Lisa Valentino does for her sister, and screams from the mountaintop, basically, and will not stop. And that's how you do find, in a lot of cases, other tragedies.
Well, what I'm saying is, in the general community, that the perception of a prostitute or someone with a drug problem that becomes missing, they're less important. That's their perception, not ours, certainly. No. And so we battle that every day, and across the nation, when someone lesser value as far as what the community places on their head, if you will. And that's why I said, he messed up when he took Allison because, she mattered. She was someone different. And then that kind of just broke everything open that, there's something going on here in this town. And what kills me the most is that everybody's okay now that the girls are found, and it's like they're not realizing that this person hasn't been caught.
Right.
I just sit there and scratch my head like, how do you sleep at night knowing that this person hasn't been caught yet? I don't care who he's killed. He hasn't been caught, and he's killed more than once. We know that.
And are the police operating under the... Excuse me, sir. I was just wondering if the police are operating under the theory that it's the same killer, or were these two entirely separate things and just happened to end up with the remains left at the same place?
No, there's no possible way it was a coincidence or anything, because of the main fact that the only reason why there was a victim that survived, this person, and that person, the only reason why she wasn't dumped at this location was because the owner of the property had put up gates. So he had to find somewhere new. And she survived. She actually escaped. But because she was a prostitute, again, and didn't show up in court, it was charges were duped down on him, and he became a free man.
So how far was where Allison Jackson Foy lived from her home to where the body was found?
Everything was in 3.5 or 3.8 miles. The last place known to be, her home, where the body location was, and even the second area, that another body location. So they were all 3.8, 3.5 miles.
Have there been dogs that had searched the area out there?
Oh, yeah.
Scoured it, you know what I mean? Just done a grid kind of thing all the way through.
I know we did. And that's why when, there's a lot of things that have gone on out there at this particular area. That's why I think it was revisited too after Allison.
Well, there's a lot of things that haven't been disclosed, that can't be disclosed on this case. And so,
but yes, there have been searches, and there still are searches even today. I still, we're still returned to the area quite often.
And when Angela Rothen's remains recovered, did she have family?
Yes, she did. And they were very, active in their own way looking for her. But again, she was a street girl, and I think they really didn't know even if she was really missing. Does that make sense? Even though she was reported missing, that I think initially when she was reported missing, maybe it was just because they couldn't find her, but it didn't mean she was missing. And then I think it became more serious later on, and they're devastated as well as, any family. But, yeah, and Lisa has taken on the fight, for Angela, too, because they were found together. There will always be something there, for all of us, that these two girls were found together.
Denny, speak to the mentality, will you please, of law enforcement who just don't think it's worth it sometimes. And this is not an attack. This is just an insight into this happens continuously, it seems.
Yeah, it does, and it seems though, like I think Monica mentioned a few minutes ago, that with Allison, it seems as though she, perhaps in the minds of the authorities, she mattered more because she wasn't a street person, she wasn't a prostitute or a drug user, and so on and so forth. And that, it's a very unfortunate thing, but it seems to be all too common, where the people who may have issues such as their lifestyle. It could be perhaps if they were gay. There could be a number of reasons. But if they don't have maybe certain social status, economic status, the authorities in some cases don't seem to give the same effort to solve those cases as they do others. And it's, I can't explain it, but that's the way it seems to go. And I suppose in some cases perhaps a street person wouldn't have the family exerting the same amount of pressure on a law enforcement agency to get results as perhaps a more affluent family would have. That I suppose could be some explanation for it, but it is an unfortunate thing.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Reality.
I just wanted to interject and say that in my experience with what happened is, and this is in no way to kill the police, because I've heard this a million times from families too, they really didn't look for Allison either. I mean, that is really the truth. What I heard for almost 2 years was she walked away, this is her M.O., she'll turn up. I mean,
but
at least
MO
the first year.
Whose MO? Is it her husband saying that?
No. This is what the police were telling us. She's done this before, And I said she hasn't done this before. I said anytime she's ever moved or gone someplace else, I've always had a phone number. I've always gotten a phone call, and she's always taken her kids. So, there's never been, my dad and I, my brother and sister and I, we kept saying to them, she wouldn't do this if she was going to leave. She would pick up the phone and she would call one of us at least to say, leave me alone, I'm okay. But never in her life did she do that either. Anytime she ever left or moved, she always had her kids, and we always knew where she was. And we always had a contact number.
Can I play devil's advocate either with Monica or you, Denny, in that, okay, there's two bodies in one area or, right near there. Is it a coincidence perhaps? Is it a fluke? Because, I don't know, something doesn't pass the smell test for me, and I don't know why. So somebody help me here, Monica or Denny.
I can tell you when I was first called on Allison's case, it was basically to provide. The first time was provide, and that was like within the day or so after she disappeared. Before I even met Lisa, I was called by the social work department of the law enforcement, and they were asking me requesting from our organization aid for the oldest daughter, to deal with her mom, walking out, being missing, and quote was said to me, she's pretty much a mother that walked out, and there were some other things that I'm not going to disclose that were said, but, and I was like, oh, well, okay, we can do this and that, A, B, and C, and it was like a couple nights later, I get a phone call from the family. They're in town, they're devastated, and they're like, this is not our loved one, what is being described to you, if you will, and we did spend almost 2 years, running down every prostitute, every this or that, and I would actually take photos. I would interview them. I would talk to them and, prove to them, oh, the new prostitute in town isn't, Allison Jackson Foy. It's a girl from Texas. She's 16, and, yeah, she did dye her hair kind of thing. I was, like, literally bringing them information, because they'd be like, well, we got word from our task force last night. And I'm like, man, this woman is not out on the street. Wilmington is not that big. And we had hit the street hard. And trust me when I say, if I go out on that street and ask if somebody's been seen, I'm going to have a call within 48 hours and tell me what I need to know. I mean, that's just the respect I have with a lot of the people on the street, because they know I'm not there to harm them, arrest them, or anything else. I'm just looking for a missing person. And they're going to help.
But is there something in this case that there's certain things, coincidence, yes. I'm not looking to hang somebody, but there's certain things, there's certain patterns that just seem unique to this case. It just so happens that there happens to be a couple other bodies there at that area. I don't know. It strikes me as a concern or a red flag.
It's no coincidence.
I think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Monica obviously is more familiar with the case than I am, but the fact that there's not only two apparently, but other remains have been found similar areas, and perhaps another one. The lady escaped or may have ended up in that same location. Somebody obviously has I think has a pet place to dispose of his victims. I don't know the reason. It could all be coincidence, but I'm a big believer in it.
That area of town has always been known to be a dumping area.
Okay, so wait. Yeah, I'm smart. I'm clever. There's a case that happens the other night that stinks to high heaven to me, and I just don't think it passes the test of what people are saying. So if an area is known where people do those things, and I want to take somebody's life, doing that wouldn't be out of the ordinary. That I would go where people assume or think, okay, this is where this happened, unless the pattern or the manner of, they can find some similarity in the bodies or the other remains that are recovered.
There's a lot of similarities, and that's what bothers me. There's a lot of similarities, and like I said, you're talking years back too. You're talking many missing girls, and you're talking some that have never been found, and even unsolved homicides. They should all be looked at this point because they're all same region.
Does this go into your? Go ahead, Denny.
Do we know the cause of death in both cases, Angela and Allison?
Yes.
Lisa?
Well,
do you want? Yeah, she was. At least Allison, according to autopsy reports, there were over 40 stab wounds in her shirt.
How about Angela? Any?
I think her head was right. Monica, her throat was slit and her head was. Yeah.
So we have both with knives, apparently, or some kind of a cutting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Allison has long hair, and so from the back she looks younger than what she might be, right?
Well, she was 34. I guess she could look younger from the back.
You don't pay attention. I mean, sometimes people with longer hair, you might not think until it's too late. That's possible. But Monica, you've done something very unique, and you have put together a real serial killer who was a truck driver going across town. Is it somebody like that would fit the profile that would do these types of crimes in one area, or sporadic or spread out like that it has been?
Well, I can tell you it's yes, and I think it's somebody that lives in our area and has lived here for many, many years, and I think there's another dump site, and that's actually what I've been looking for. And I go out and train constantly, and maybe I'll get in the right area one day. I don't know, because it's a very large, vast area in that whole region. And like I said, I moved to North Carolina as a teenager. I was 16 and a half years old. And I knew within the first year that River Road was your dump zone. I mean, people talked about. Was it a dumping ground for that the case that you've been putting together for the serial killer? Has those killings been okay? But it's somebody like that perhaps. Yes. It could be. Yes, there are some cases that go into that as well. But he was in jail when Allison and Angela and all them. So this is definitely someone else.
And then the other girl, the third victim that was found. Does it match up to these other two girls?
One of them, yes.
Go ahead, Denny.
I was just thinking, if this is not the same killer in these cases, or attacker or assailant in these cases, then it means what? If they're all different, you got 3 or 4 murderers running around down there. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly,
if it's a different guy each time. Wow. Let me ask you this now. Regarding, obviously you know more, well, Monica, you probably know quite a bit about each of the cases, Angela and Allison. Was there any similarities between did the girls ever, hang out at the same places? Did they know each other? Anyone think they ever knew each other? Did they have similar builds? Is there anything that would have them, in common?
Well, that's been the struggle of that Allison didn't have similarities to the other girls. However, the region and the fact that all these girls could be tied to taking a lot of cabs or in a cab, I think is probably the similarity. And I think what happened with Allison is that my true belief, and nobody can change my mind, is that she just ended up at chance, if you will. It was just something that happened, and maybe someone assumed that she was somebody she wasn't, because she was definitely, intoxicated that night.
And then
where was she last?
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
I was wondering where she was last seen. I mean, where a definite sighting.
Well,
That's your similarities. That's your similarities.
So we know where she was last seen. She was last seen at the Junction Pub, Bar and Grill on Carolina Beach Road. That's the last time she was seen.
In Atlanta, a couple of years ago, Russell Elwood, who was serving many lifetimes for serial killers, drove a cab. And that's where all the victims could be tied to him. But what I found is interesting is, and this article's old, but it says that about the evidence submission in the case, that they have circumstantial and they're waiting for the evidence they need to make an arrest. Mm-hmm. So, Lisa, does that mean that they are strong in presenting of the information and the DNA or whatever else that they have that they found, that they have somebody in mind to make an arrest?
I think I can say, I think they have someone in mind to make an arrest. I think we all do, and I think that is the problem, is that it's all circumstantial, and even, the clothing and the stuff that was found at the scene, they couldn't, the DNA, they couldn't get anything back other than, Allison's, own DNA. There was nothing anyplace else, and that's always been a problem with this case. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Because last June they said that the evidence in double murder, investigation was submitted months later, and everybody's kind of still waiting to see where this is going, especially in your sister's case,
right.
Because of what's been provided. And I'm actually surprised that the news reports indicated this, that there is circumstantial, so that the person is listening. We say each time, the person is responsible, especially in your sister's case for the murder, they have this case on Google Alert. They will pay attention. They will listen. So if there's something that you'd like to say to the person who put your sister on Google Alert to see what's going on, what would you say to them?
Oh, that's I don't know if this show is long enough what would I say? For me, I still to this day have a very difficult time understanding the pure evil of someone to take the life of somebody else. I struggle with that, every day, because I just don't understand it. And so, I think I would just, they not only did they ruin the life of my father and my brothers and sisters by taking, a sister and a daughter away, but her two children. My gosh, to grow up without a mom, to never have those opportunities and chances, and really for my own sister, she might have had a lot of hard times in her life, was going through things, but she never had the opportunity to become what she could have been, and it's very still surreal for me in so many, many ways. And just to have, just the way she died, it's very tough. It's very, very difficult. I don't even think I have words.
Are you in constant communication with the detectives?
I am, actually. I make sure that I stay in contact, and actually I have to say that the current detective on her case, I happen to like. We get along well. He is very responsive to me, whether it's through email or phone calls. Whenever I reach out to him, he reaches back. And so, and I once in a while I get in touch with the chief of police. I try to keep my hands in everything and let them know that, hey, I'm still here, my family's still here, and I'm not going anywhere until this is resolved.
Talk to the missing person's family who doesn't think that they have a right to call the police and keep up with contact for answers, especially after a case has gone cold or there's really no information? How do you tell that missing person's family to continue to be strong and be consistent?
Well, you just have to. I mean, you can't. I don't live in North Carolina, so for me it was constant phone calls, emails, and then when I was unsatisfied with something, I went up the chain of command, so to speak, as Monica taught me to do. Start here. If you get no response, then you go here. If you get no response, then you go here. And that it's my right, and for missing persons' families, it's your right. This is your loved one. You have every right to be involved. You have every right to know what's going on. You have every right to make that phone call, to send that email, and to be involved. And I think a lot of times, the chief of police in Wilmington has said to me before, don't ever apologize for what you're doing. He said, it's this squeaky wheel, unfortunately, that gets oiled, he said, and if I was in your position, I would be doing the same thing.
But not every police department is like Wilmington, nor do they have an agency right in their backyard called Q or a pit bull called Monica Cason. So there's a difference in that he better fly right. I don't mean that in any disrespect, but I mean, my goodness, she's right there. But the funny thing is they didn't do all the right things on this case, even with her being there. They didn't do all the right things, and I think Monica could tell you, too, how many things we had to actually fight for and educate the PD, whether it was getting her DNA and CODIS or anything. But the families that are out there who do not get in touch with Monica or who get in touch with them 5 years later, like Amanda Jones, and some of these other families who nobody knows anything, 25-year-old cold cases, and then they have that right, and so it's Monica who has to step in and say, wait a minute, hello, this is what has to happen, that we need to reopen this, and steps in. So if she didn't do that, and in other states and places, you were lucky because that chief of police happens to be very amenable and open and helpful.
Well, you're right. You're right,
so that's what that's about. And I kid when I say about Monica, but it is partially true because I'm talking to her like she's not here, but she's actually because I can do that, Benny. But she's someone who seriously so the education, and I see what you've been doing in this last year is. You're kind of following behind but helping the families, and you're there for them to say, okay, do you need something? This is what you do, and you offer support and pull it up as she moves forward and grows the organization even bigger because you can't keep up with all of these missing persons cases and be effective without someone like Alyssa Valentino who's been through this, who's waiting for answers. Now the case is still unsolved in a homicide, and you're diligent in moving forward until other families will see that. And I think that Monica Cason means a lot. And that also goes to why it's the 8th annual conference this year in support of a journey, isn't it?
It is. And I mean, this conference is to empower the victim and to educate the victim so they can bring that tool back to their law enforcement and for their case. I mean, victims that don't have the empowerment and are not educating themselves are not doing any kind of justice for their loved ones. And it's so vital that you have to learn. When, I had a family tell me the other day that, they ran sonar, and I said, what kind of sonar? Well, I don't know. Well, I know for a fact that the particular sonar that was ran cannot run in that particular type of situation because it was a rock quarry. So, therefore, there's been an injustice done already in the search effort made for that loved one because you cannot be sure that particular, search was a good one. So you go back and you do other things. Families have to educate themselves on the technology out there, how it's used. They need to get proactive in their case, never apologize, move forward. Like Lisa said, this is your loved one. This is your case, and you're asking for their help to investigate it. If the case is not being investigated, you have to move forward and make that investigation happen. I mean, Lisa her father had to hire a private investigator and spend thousands of dollars to bring forth the information that we had found. We produced that information, and it was falling on deaf ears. And now, years later, we're sitting here, and now everybody's taking it serious. But we had to get a private investigator to follow up on all this stuff that we were uncovering because we were out there asking the hard questions. We were out there doing the footwork because, like she said, unfortunately, in the first couple of years, they just were convinced that she walked off and, abandoned her family and were listening to people that did not really know her. And, saying that she had, an issue with drugs or this or that, and it just simply wasn't all true. And so there were many things that happened in this case. This was not an easy journey for Lisa or even myself, even being here in law enforcement, knowing us very well, and we respect them highly. But when it comes to missing people, this is the crisis that's all over the nation. Law enforcement are not equipped to handle the missing person case. They handle an investigation, so you have to give them that investigation to follow because that's what they're trained and that's what they're best at. So a missing person sometimes is simply they're not there. We don't know what happened. Well, they're not going to produce that investigation.
But I think it also goes towards intimate partner homicide cases because it's the same thing. And when they go missing, there's not that same workup or effort that goes into those cases. And anytime you have a woman that just vanishes, yes, every once in a while somebody shows back up 18 years later because there was a case recently in California. That's not the norm. The norm is that when... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the first 10 days that I spent with Lisa and them, when took the first week or so that they were here, I told Lisa that I felt like it was a stranger abduction and that your sister is laid down somewhere because we worked these streets and no information was coming back. And I also told her she's in plain sight, 3 to 5 miles somewhere from here. We just got to find her. And I mean, I don't even know why I said it, but that's the feeling that I had right off the bat because, like I said, I know this area. People are very responsive to me. If I can go into hard places, the very bad places most people wouldn't go, and I'm accepted there because they know I'm not there to threaten whatever they're doing. I'm just looking for somebody. So, I get the calls. I get the information. It might be a day or so later, and I told her after a few days, I was like, we're not getting anything, and people that trust me she's not there. She's not on the street. She's laid down somewhere, and she's not far from this pub that she was at. And the bar isn't really even a bar. It's kind of like a sports club, a little bit, medium scale. People go there and play darts. People bring their kids in the daytime and play pool, that kind of thing. It's not really a bar.
How tall is your sister, Lisa?
How tall?
Yeah, was she? Yeah. Was she tall, short?
Well, she's taller than me, but, she was probably average height. She was probably average height for maybe she was 5. I don't know. Maybe she was 5'8" or 5'9". I'm sorry, I can't recall.
I just think taller is harder to take away or to hurt or to harm.
Okay.
And shorter is lower to the ground to be able to kind of drag off and do things with. That's why.
I tell you, I guess she's a little taller than average, but I can, there's no way my sister would have gone out without a fight. I can tell you that. So, there's just no way.
Denny, how hard is it in this kind of a case? This is possibly a serial killing. How hard is it or difficult is it for law enforcement to just pinpoint an area and really just start keeping their ears to the street and really putting together a case, perhaps? Are these killers that clever where they can, be magicians to the law enforcement?
I don't think so. There are some smart criminals out there. There's no question. There's some sharp people, but I think sometimes it's a matter of luck. It's a matter of maybe the people in a position to know are afraid to drop a dime on this guy or something. If he's a dangerous guy, maybe they just don't want to get involved. But somebody, I believe, in almost every case, somebody knows something. Right. And it's a matter of getting that person or those persons who have the information to come forward and get it out there. Now, I'm just curious, is there any reward being offered for information in Allison's case?
Well, there was originally. There hasn't been anything new. I mean, if that's what you're asking. I mean, there was a reward. I don't know how to state this, Monica, for information leading to her. I don't know. Do you say discovery? Yeah.
And that was based on trying to find her. After the fact, there's not been a reward. I think Crime Stoppers may still have a reward, but it's not even been a non-issue. And I'm not a fan of rewards. I think it just puts labels on people and what the information's worth. The information's out there, and they have the information. It's just unfortunately, it's going to be when someone else gets missing again that it's going to really kick it up a notch, or something falls into their lap more than what they have. But this isn't some clever person. This is a person that's just basically doesn't care. He throws his victims out, and that's, he put no care into even concealing them, really. And it's arrogance. It's like, I know nobody's going to come look for these girls kind of thing. And that's what, it goes right back to, well, you were wrong with Allison because people did come looking for her.
What about a criminal profiler? I know that they used it in the case. Was it helpful? But law enforcement used a criminal profiler. Did it help at all?
I'll let answer that.
I mean, I think it pretty much confirmed what they were thinking, and who, and the person or persons that they had in mind. I mean, I think it pretty well, confirmed their suspicions, if I can say that.
Okay.
So I think it was helpful in that it let them know that you're on the right track. This is definitely the person or persons that we would be looking at.
I think it's also important to, at the conference, what you're going to do, to me, is something very unique this year. You're doing a death declaration and power of attorney in missing persons. Why is that so important in these cases, Monica?
Oh, Lord, I just talked about this in Link today, because of the fact that more and more you've got the intimate partner, people, that couples that are, the husband's killing the wife or whatnot, and leaving small children behind. And we're running into that more and more where, they have a house, they have a car, they have a paycheck left at a job, they have children left behind. And these families are strapped enough because they're spending every dime into the investigation as far as trying to get out there doing posters or what have you. And then what happens is they're struggling trying to pick up the pieces. They can't get information because of the HIPAA law. They can't do this. They can't do that. So, but what we're trying to tell them is it can be done, but this is the avenue you have to go down to do it. You can get a medical power of attorney over a missing person. You can get a power of attorney over a missing person.
No, stop right there. People don't know that. You can get a medical power of attorney over a missing person.
You can, but you have to get a lawyer and you have to go through the route to do it, and it doesn't take that long, especially, in a vital situation like there's still chance of trying to find this person quickly. But if, there's certain criteria, and that's what we plan on teaching people, like this is the avenue, this is what you need to do. Everybody always thinks that they have to wait 7 years, and then they still have to struggle to get a death declaration. And in fact, that's not true. More and more now, the courts are viewing this as a rising issue, and they're granting these to families that are left behind because they realize the enormous effort that these, and the task that's ahead for these families. It's bad enough they can't find their missing loved one, but then they have 4 small children there. They're financially, strapped, and they have a car, they have a house, they have all these belongings. They have medical records that could actually aid the investigators or whatnot. So these are, it's simply not true, and that's what every year we try to educate people, that are suffering a missing person and other experiences that we've had success in, and try to bring that knowledge to them and said, this can happen, and here's your proof, and this is the expert that's going to show you how to do it.
But isn't it also the fact that that they don't, it's a resolve to that, oh my gosh, I have to do disclosure. It's not that we're going to not stop looking for them, but we need to do this for legal reasons. But how does it affect cases where she's married to the person who hasn't been arrested, and they have no power whatsoever, and they need to declare her dead? How does that work then? They still need to get a lawyer? Because, a lot of times in missing persons cases, especially after a period of time, the surviving family members like Lisa or in other situations, they feel that they have no rights and that they can't do this. So do they need to hire a lawyer as well? Do they have some sort of a right?
The immediate next of kin would, if they are married and that person is not a suspect, then it makes it more difficult. But there are still areas that are gray that you can cross over into and exercise your rights. A lot of states have grandparent rights. A lot of states, will recognize if there's an aunt that's very involved or an uncle or a cousin or whatnot. They just, it's just every case is. I would have to say at that point it's going to be based on, what the evidence is presented at that point. But the fact that if you declare your loved one deceased, it doesn't mean the case is going to be closed. It means for movement in taking care of what's left. That's where you have to get your mind set. And as far as if there is a person left behind, the husband, then I encourage families, and as an advocate, I would encourage families to be in relationship with that person so they can, such as Lisa's father has, so they can still maintain relationship with the children or whatnot and still have family involvement. It doesn't matter how long, and Lisa and I have had this discussion, that this child will be kept from her. She will come and find her one day, and then she's going to know the truth. And that's when the parent who has done this harm to that child will pay for what they've done. So it may take a while, but it will come around, and she is seeing that circle now. So,
and it does come around. And what happens is they know or they have a sense of something. And I see it time and time again in these cases.
Children need to know who their parents were and are, and no matter how bad, you have to put your things aside. In some rare cases, families can't put themselves aside for the child's sake, and I guess whatever, but it will come back around, and that child will seek those out, and they will learn the truth one day, and they'll be a healthy adult. Sometimes adults can't get past themselves to see the damage that they're doing, but, like I said, that's case per case, but, families do have rights. If the person is a suspect, then the next of kin would be their parents, their living parents, or the next sibling in line, and they do have rights, and you can get your rights established.
And I think that this case, it's important. Peggy Divagnowski, who we've had her family on a case on the show, went missing 27 years ago from Schaumburg, Illinois. Her sons are kept, and they believe that the mother was bludgeoned to death in the house. They were never allowed to talk about it when the boys were young. They go to a wedding years later and say, do you know where my mom is? Things start to come back to them. They wind up going to the cold case unit in Illinois and facilitating a case and charges against their own father for the murder of their mother. But the judge doesn't proceed because he does, but he says, I'm going to declare an acquittal here because there's not enough. The case is too old. Investigators thought they had it. Prosecutors did. They've never found her to this day. And here are three grown men now, all in their 30s, who still search for their mom, and it was that their dad marries a woman with the same name, moves her in right away. And that because so much time had passed, nobody had really gone into the home. They didn't check certain things. But these boys did, after all those years, they went back. They somehow knew that something had happened, and they were able to see. And that when her sister said, when the boys asked, don't you know what happened? And your mother would never leave you. In all these cases, moms just don't leave, do they?
I would say 99% of the time they don't. I don't know where any people get their statistics from, but I live this day in and day out, and I have not seen it. I mean, I saw it one time, and she immediately called within a day or so, and she just pretty much had a break from reality, if you will. But I've not seen it. I don't get where they get these statistics like, oh, they'll come back, or, oh, they just ran away, they'll be back in a few days, or
where do they run to? Look at Hope Meek, Oklahoma. Hope Meek.
As a grown adult, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to run away as a grown adult, especially and leave money behind. The first alarm should always be if your credit cards and the car's still there, and and all that kind of stuff. And with Allison's case, that was left there. Lisa had rented her a car because her car was being worked on, and the rental car was left at the place. So it's like, that should have been the first red flag. But they listened to her husband initially, and he was upset, thinking, she was doing something and didn't want to come home. Obviously she was miserable in her marriage. That's a known fact, and she probably was not going to be in that marriage much longer. But she wouldn't have left those kids And that's where you have to stop profiling and saying, well, she's probably just abandoned the situation, and listen to the family. They know their victim. We don't. We're strangers walking in. And so what if at the end of the day you wasted a little bit of time, which I don't consider it wasting time, but you went off and looked for this person and put your resources out, and then they show up. Okay, then charge them, reprimand them, spank them, whatever you have to do. But
at the end of the day, you're coming in at the 2-minute movie, and it's got to be quick, and you've got to find out what you can to do what you need to do, because time is important. How many recoveries that I know about that you've done where the person didn't die because you were able to locate them in time? Actually, right out in Wilmington, a couple cases that you were called in by law enforcement. That's what this is so important about the agency, but it's also important that's why this conference is being held. That's why the conference, it's not just, I say this all the time, it's not some huggy-kissy, let's get together and have a cart full of Kleenex at the table. This is a training, it's knowledge, it's things that people can take. You offer the road to becoming a search and rescue technician. Who does that? I mean, I don't see that in other agencies, and I think that every investigator needs to be part of that. I think that every investigator needs to show up.
Yeah, we have a very mixed crowd. A lot of, conferences I go to, it's either, all law enforcement and your special invitation, as a civilian, or it's all, heads of directors of organizations or whatnot, or it's geared towards whatever. We have a very mixed crowd. We'll have retired coroners, current coroners, private investigators, search teams, law enforcement, every level of law enforcement, families with long-term missing, short-term missing, victims of homicide. You're going to have a total mixed crowd. And and these families look at this as almost a reunion, too. Every year I get calls from families like, I can't wait till the conference comes, because they get to see all the people that are working behind the difference to make a difference.
But I think it's their hope, because they know, and it's very difficult for them. That's the only thing that they know with a consistency, while they're still looking for their loved one, that they'll see that person that they struck up that friendship with. But at the same time, because they always seem to be helping other people, other families, that they'll be able to learn as they continue to go. And it is their hope. This conference, from what I've witnessed, is their hope, and I think that's so important.
People understand how each other feels, so you don't have to go into introducing yourself and telling them, yes, I have a missing daughter, and going through all that, because it's just like, yes, my daughter's missing. They're like, oh, I'm sorry. And they immediately connect because they have a missing child or they have a missing loved one. So it's not like, I had a father tell me one time that he came to the conference for the first few years, and we were very unsure about adding this Friday night party because we didn't want to give the perception that, this was like some fun stuff, but then we had to kind of relieve the tension of the conference. So we added this thing on our 5th year anniversary, which is basically karaoke and just letting down your hair and just having a good social networking. Let's get past all the proper network and let's just be friends and let's talk. And he told me it was the first time he had laughed out loud and not felt guilty about it in 10 years.
And I think that's important for these families, because it takes you so long, doesn't it, Lisa, to laugh out loud?
I can honestly say that the first time I went to the conference, everything that Monica's saying, but it was the first time that I actually felt like, other people got it. You're like you say, you're in a room where other people just really understand, which for someone like myself, that was really, really important, and to bring support with me, and they kind of got a better understanding of everything, then plus all of the other stuff that they offer, which is just, they're no words, they're just great training, great classes, important stuff. I've learned so much every year that I've come, and then there is that other side of it, like you say.
We're out of time. Everybody that's listening, please go to www.ncmissingpersons.org for more information. And if you want to volunteer, if you want to adopt a family, because summer's coming and vacation, so please keep in mind to download one of the missing persons posters off the site from the Q Center and take it with you on vacation. Put it on the back of your window. If you're stopping at a rest area or a gas station, put the poster up. It goes a long way. Thank you to the Crime Wire team, our Director of Research, Kim Colton, and Public Relations team at ImaginePublicity.com. Our next show will be Tuesday, March 27th, 2012. Tune in as we continue to analyze cases, crimes that interrupt and wreak havoc on families, looking for answers and seeking justice.
Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Wire. We always welcome your support and value you as our guest. If you would like your case to be featured on Crime Wire, email us at thecrimewire@gmail.com. To hear a rebroadcast of tonight's show, go to www.crimewire.blogspot.com. Turn on the volume at your computer and the show will automatically play. Remember, we ensure that your voices will be heard when there is nowhere else to turn. Visit our website at www.crimewiresite.com. God bless from the Crime Wire team, Denny Griffin and Susan Murphy-Milano. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you in a couple days.
Thank you.
Night,
All right,
night,
bye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.